Hey guys, you know, over the past couple of weeks, or this past month, Sean McLean of Zaranyzerak of the Multimedia Chronicles, just adjusting my camera there for a second, hold on. There we go. But like I said, Sean McLean of the Multimedia Chronicles, Zaranyzerak, if you will, has been celebrating Batman, if you will. Been talking a lot about Batman because it's Batman's 80th anniversary. Now, a lot of people probably don't know that until someone like Sean brings it up. And for a lot of us that, let's say, saw the 1989 film, it makes us feel kind of old because, as Sean puts it, that movie was released during the 30th anniversary. Now, with that said though, one thing Sean has been doing over these videos is talking a lot about what he has, about his love for Batman and the movies and stuff that he has, multimedia-wise, related to it. So I figured, you know what, Sean likes to do it in one shot, or likes to do them individually, that's fine. Me, I'm going to try to do it in one shot here. So without further ado, and let me get a bit of the water here for a second. I'm going to start off by showing you something that I don't know if Sean ever played when he had a Nintendo, if he had one, or anybody else. I'm sure a lot of people have, and a lot of people may have not have. But the two things I want to show you are, of course, the NES Batman video game and the Game Boy Batman game. Now you might say, well, how is that the big Game Boy one? Well, if you look here, you can see the B for Batman, and of course it's done by Sunsoft. I've also popped it in so it kind of is, so I can kind of know what it is, and it is indeed Batman. Now, of course, this one is the NES version that came out as well, and both of them were distributed and released around the time of the 1989 movie, which is pretty cool. And I remember when these came out, mostly the NES game, people wanted to play it. Everybody wanted to get their hands on it. We were fortunate enough when we were kids to rent it from a place called Ultimate Video. I think that, well, not Ultimate Video, but we rented it from a video store in Waterford, California, because that's where we lived at the time the movie came out. So we rented it, and we did have fun with it for a bit until we had to return it. Now, speaking of movies, of course, like everybody else, I did, as a kid, watch the 1960s Batman series in syndication and on Nickelodeon, but mostly syndication. And the reason I know that is because when it would be playing on Nickelodeon, it would also be playing in the daytime, and I think sometimes it would air after Nickelodeon replayed or re-aired the 1960 Beatle cartoons. Now, I remember watching the 1960 Batman series and enjoying it. And when I found out there was a movie, of course, I ended up seeing it as well. I think it was also shown on Nickelodeon, also shown in syndication. So anytime it would come on, I would try to watch it because, hey, that was kind of cool. Especially when they took the show off the air for a while and all you had was just the special appearance of the movie. Now, I did finally get the movie on Blu-ray, which I'm happy to say. I got this, I think, around last year or 2 years ago. And I showed my mom, and my mom was like, oh, cool, something you can put on when the kids are here, which is kind of true. I can put this on when the kids are around, if they want to see it. And of course, that's the DVD cover, DVD disc. Blu-ray disc, I should say. Not much to it. And then on the back, of course, you have the special features. And what's unique about this as well is because when this was released in 1966, ratings were very scarce. In other words, they were kind of a new thing. You had your G's, you had your PGs, and you had your NC-17s, or mostly your XXX movies. But you didn't really have any R-rated movies that much. I mean, there was an R rating, but not as much. I mean, ratings movie-wise from the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, wasn't as strongly forced onto movies or even confusing as they are today. Back then, anything that was a little bit more mature, a little hardcore at times, a little bit violent, was given a PG rating. Anything that really went beyond that at times, when it came to language, nudity, sex, you name it, went to R, if not NC-17, or XXX at the time. Batman the movie, the 1966 movie, as far as I know, was given originally a G rating. Yeah, this was given a G rating. It wasn't until the movie would be distributed onto home video, mostly DVD and Blu-ray, that it would get a rating that nowadays people would feel is appropriate. And that is, of course, a PG rating. And I know some people would say, well, why was it rated G? Well, it's like I said, at the time, a lot of movies that were very, you could tell, very light-hearted, in a sense, very family-oriented, were not looked at as big threats, even if they were based on something like Batman. And basically because, as Sean McLean, Zaranyzerak puts it, the movie was basically a big-budget version of the series to bridge a gap between, I think, seasons 1 and 2. The MPAA saw no fuss or foul in giving it a G rating. It wouldn't be until later on, like I said, when this would finally get a Blu-ray and DVD distribution, that it would get that PG rating, because basically nowadays anything that's live action that has a bit of a violent tone, not as much, gets a PG rating. However, speaking of movies that got ratings that they did kind of deserve, one movie that Sean gushes over a lot, in fact he had to do 2 parts of it, he had to do 2 separate videos to talk about it, of course, was the 1989 film. Now, with all due respect to Zaranyzerak, Sean McLean, unlike him, I was able to see this movie on the big screen at the drive-in. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't the Union City drive-in that I've talked about in one video. It was actually a drive-in, I think that was in Riverbank, California, or in between there. It was in between Waterford and Modesto. It might have been in Modesto. I think Modesto had a drive-in. I can't really remember. But it was a drive-in that only had, like, I think 3 or 4 theater screens or something. I can't remember. But we went there and we saw this. Because like Sean said in his video, in his first video talking about it, it was hyped up so much that it got people to want to see it. Especially if you were a fan of Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton, and Kim Basinger. It made you want to see it just because with those 2 actors and actress being featured in this movie, especially in the roles that they were given, that's saying something. It really is. It really is saying something. So we did end up seeing it as a family at the drive-in when it came out. And we knew when it came out to home video, we had to get it. And around Christmas of that year, or Christmas of the following year, I believe, we ended up getting it. Because again, a little bit of a reminder, like I said in one video, when I talked about my Transformers movie, my history with the Transformer movie, back in the 80s and even the early 90s, it took almost about a year for the movie to come out onto VHS. Now, I can't remember if this movie came out in 1989 onto VHS after its run to theaters, or we waited for about a year. I think we waited about a year because I remember we got this movie on VHS for Christmas. We ended up getting it. Now, of course, because of its big success, they ended up getting a sequel out, and that, of course, was this one. And like a lot of people have said, it's a much more darker film. Now, you got to remember, though, with Tim Burton behind the helm, of course, eventually you were going to get a more creepier, darker interpretation of Batman, especially if it's a follow-up, and that's what this was. Now, I can't remember whether or not we saw it in the theaters or not. I think we might have. I think we might have. Just checking on my dog. She went in my mom's room to cool down a little bit because she was outside sunny. But anyway, like I said, I think we saw this in the theaters when it came out, not the drive-in, because when this came out, we were kind of in between. We had moved from Waterford back to the Bay Area, and we were living kind of like on the border of San Lorenzo and Hayward, California. So we lived in that area at the time. So what we did, of course, was go see the movie when we wanted to in the theaters, and that's what we did. Now, like I said, is it darker? Absolutely. But was it a box office success? Absolutely, it was a box office success. There's no doubt about that. But the sequel we ended up getting, though, was a little bit more lighter in tone. Or was it? Because you see, the sequel we ended up getting would be the first of the two movies directed by Joel Schumacher, but this one was a bit of a hybrid. It still had that dark tone that we would use with the Tim Burton films, but you could tell it had its lighter tone as well when that became associated with Joel Schumacher. The reason being, of course, I think there was an outcry from what I understand, because of the darkness and the creepiness and all that with the second film, that they wanted someone else to come in and make it a little bit more lighter, more in tone, more colorful. Not as dreary, if you will. And that's what this one did. This one also continued a trend that we ended up getting in Batman Returns. In Batman Returns, we ended up getting both Catwoman and the Penguin. Here, we end up getting the Riddler and Two-Face. Now, even though this was directed under Joel Schumacher, it was produced by Tim Burton, making it, like I said, a hybrid of both what Tim Burton did and what Joel Schumacher would become known to do. And if you don't believe me, I think right there, if you can see it, it says produced by Tim Burton, and then, like I said, directed by Joel Schumacher. And I think this was the only collab these two would have together on a Batman film. But it was done because it gave fans a familiarity of what was and what was going to be. And what's funny about this time, you would notice that there was a trend going on. The trend was every 3 years you'd get a new Batman film. Every 3 years. And I'm just checking my battery life on my camera here. Where you would get a Batman film every 3 years, so every 3 to 2 years. 1989 we had the first Batman. We had Batman with Michael. We had the first Tim Burton film. 1992 we had the second one. 1995 we had this. And then around 1997, 98, I think it was 97, we ended up getting this. Batman and Robin, which many consider is the worst of the Batman films, and basically the visual aid of how slowly a popular franchise can decline. Because you had two villains, you had not one, not two, but three villains. You had Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, and you had Bane. But not only that, you also had the introduction of Batgirl. But the way Batgirl was introduced and her background was changed up. Instead of being Commissioner Gordon's daughter, she was the niece of Alfred. And pretty much this was exampled as being more closely resembling what you had in the 1960s. So yeah, was it a big hit? It was successful, yes. It was successful, yes, but even though it made money, it didn't make enough to warrant another sequel, even though one was planned. Now, after that, we wouldn't get another Batman theatrical film until Christopher Nolan took over, and we ended up getting this trio of films as a result. Batman Begins, which I think I saw in theaters when I was living on my own, The Dark Knight, and of course, The Dark Knight Rises, with the lenticular easy for me to say, lenticular cover. Now, unlike the last Batman movie under the Joel Schumacher, Tim Burton regime, this was actually a little bit better. Was it better than these? No. But it was still popular enough to where Christopher Nolan knew, hey, I had to quit while the quitting was good. Or get out as soon as I could. I think he didn't want to overstay his welcome, you know what I'm saying? Now this one, believe it or not, got nominated for Best Picture along with Heath Ledger, even after his passing, getting Best Supporting Actor. So overall, these are pretty good. They're actually pretty good. And the way they go with the villains are, you get Ra's al Ghul in this one, you get the Joker in this one because he was hinted at in the first film, along with the debut of Two-Face, and then you get Bane and you get Catwoman here. So you get a good collective group of villains going, you know, starting from this one to these next two. So pretty cool. And basically Nolan knew when to quit because I think he didn't want to overdo anything. Now, of course, those live action films are not the only Batman movies we ended up getting, of course. Far from it. We actually ended up getting a lot, thanks to the DC animated universe, or the DC original animated universe, if you will. And what did we get? Well, I'll show you. Now, the first one we did get, I don't have it with me, because I didn't get it on Blu-ray yet. I think I might have DVD recorded it onto a DVD or something, I don't know. But the first one we ended up getting was Batman Year One. That's the first one. Now, the other ones we ended up getting had him teamed up with Superman. The first one was, of course, Batman and Superman, or Superman and Batman, Public Enemies. The other one was, of course, Superman Batman Apocalypse, which introduced Supergirl into the equation. But that wasn't the end. Batman did end up getting his own films as well. Batman ended up getting his own films based on his stories, like Batman Under the Red Hood, which is one of the more popular comic book stories of Batman that's out there. Other ones he ended up getting as well was this one. This one I ended up getting on DVD individually, or actually DVD recording onto DVD individually, but I ended up getting on Blu-ray The Dark Knight Returns. This is the deluxe edition on Blu-ray. Basically, it's both movies separated. Yeah, we have both movies here, believe it or not. And it was the first of what would be known, it was the first of what would be followed up later on by the Superman story. It was the first time that they ever had actually put two movies like this onto Blu-ray, well, not Blu-ray, but had actually told a story through two overarching movies. Because it was so big. The other ones Batman ended up getting under the DC license, of course, were Son of Batman, which I've seen a little bit of and looks really good. Batman Assault on Arkham, which is more of a Suicide Squad movie, but it's got Batman in there. And then, of course, this one, which got advertised, and a lot of people were talking about it because it's the first time a Batman original story got the anime treatment. And in fact, it even says it on the back there. Batman Ninja, which is pretty cool. So we ended up getting that. Then, of course, we ended up getting one of the more anticipated ones, Batman the Killing Joke, which has been under a lot of scrutiny. A lot of people, even Doug Walker, Nostalgia Critic, says that if you take out the first 30 minutes, then you basically have the Killing Joke as is. Then, of course, we ended up getting Batman Gotham by Gaslight, which is another R-rated one. And that was the one thing that DC did with a lot of the films. The one thing that DC did with a lot of the films is they ended up releasing a lot of R-rated material. You know, because some of the movies had to go the R route. And then, last but not least, got Batman Bad Blood with the Nightwing figure. These are the gift sets. And then, of course, Batman and Robin with the Batman figurine in there. So, that's one thing I ended up doing as well, is getting those. And then, of course, like Zaranyzerak showed, I ended up also getting only the first 2 volumes of Batman the Animated Series. Volume 2 and Volume 1. Now, do I plan to get the Blu-ray set of it? Absolutely. I really do absolutely plan to get that, as well as the other 2 volumes just in case. But I do plan to get both volumes, if not the complete series, when the time is right. But really though, that's about it. That's all I can really say with my Batman collection here, multimedia collection, movies and all that. I know others have a lot more, movies and video games I should say, but I know a lot of people have a lot more, but I thought I'd just share it with you guys in one shot what I do have, and that's about it. So guys, want to let me know what you have, comment down below. Check out Zaranyzerak's videos on what he has to say on the Batman series, and I will talk to you all later. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I am out.